Hastert. In 2005, I provided information to Vanity Fair's investigative reporter. His name was David Rose. And later, as an investigative reporter, he had to go and gather other legitimate witnesses who would and could corroborate what I had testified on Dennis Hastert. And this is 2004, 2005. And he did. Because when you're looking at a mainstream media outlet like Vanity Fair, they have a major, big legal department. They don't want to be sued, okay? So they are very cautious on, if it's the government, their source, let's say a high-level official in Pentagon, that's good. Their word is kosher. Their word is good as gold. They don't need any other documents or witnesses. However, if it's a truth teller, if it's a government whistleblower, an outsider with information on the insiders, then the rules change. You have to show documentation. You have to bring in at least 2-3 witnesses. And in fact, if it's possible, those witnesses have to be high-ranking. Let's say special agent in charge. Well, in this case with Vanity Fair, the investigative reporter, David Rose, actually spent almost a year, and he found other special agents within the FBI, former and current, people in congressional offices, and officials within Justice Department who corroborated my claims on Dennis Hastert. So they came out in September 2005, Vanity Fair with 2 million plus circulation. They published a 6-7 page article. Here this woman is sticking her neck and testifying against one of the most powerful men in this country, Dennis Hastert. Now, granted, they were cautious. They said, their legal department, not the journalists involved, they said, okay, we can talk about his criminal operations involving money laundering and foreign influence, but the information you and other witnesses gave on Dennis Hastert, pedophile activities in both his townhouse with his chief of staff, Scotty, in Washington, D.C., in the townhouse and offices and the flats over offices that he had in Illinois, and how they were delivering young boys, ages 14, 15. Some of these people were foreign entities. How these were videotaped. How FBI was in possession of these videotapes. They didn't want to include those. They thought it was too explosive, and they didn't want to touch it. It was not due to the fact that we didn't give them. But even with that, or despite that, this was a damning piece written on the most powerful man, Speaker of the House. There was this uniform blackout on Dennis Hastert case by all the other media outlets, alternative or mainstream. Then 4 years later, I testified under oath during Krikorian deposition. And I went into even more details. You are going to see the video. I'm talking about nefarious sexual activities that he carried out, the Speaker of the House, Dennis Hastert, under oath.
It also appears that you have a photograph of Dennis Hastert in the gallery?
Yes.
Okay, and why is his photograph there?
Again, this information is public, has been public.
Mm-hmm.
It's, he would be one of the primary U.S. persons involved in operations and activities that are not legal, and they are not for the interest of the United States, but for the interest of foreign governments and foreign entities.
And that was blacked out completely intentionally. We had press release on these. And yet, people come back 2 years ago, it becomes public. It is on top of every single newspaper, New York Times, Washington Post, that he's being indicted because he was giving hush money to some of the boys he raped. This came out 10 years after I gave this information to mainstream media. Do you know how many other boys this man raped? the minors he raped between 2005 and 2015? Do you know that he could have been indicted and jailed based on all evidence gathered by the FBI, all evidence I had provided to various mainstream media outlets? This man would have been indicted and jailed in 2005, 2006.